As I wiped away my tears at my only son's funeral, my daughter-in-law whispered in my ear, "Let's see where you'll live now that I inherited all the fortune." I just stayed silent. When I got home, I fainted at what I saw. Mom, don't tell her I'm alive. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this and comment the city you're watching from. The rain drummed against the funeral home windows like accusing fingers, each drop echoing the hollow ache in my chest. I sat in the front row, staring at the mahogany casket that supposedly held my only son, William. At 56, I never imagined I'd be burying my 32-year-old boy. The flowers were beautiful, white lilies and roses that he would have hated. William always preferred wildflowers, the kind that grew untamed in our backyard when he was little. People filed past me, offering their condolences with those awkward, rehearsed phrases that never quite fit the magnitude of loss. He's in a better place now. At least he's not suffering anymore. Each word felt like sandpaper against my raw nerves, but it was Evelyn who delivered the final blow. My daughter-in-law stood beside me during the closing prayer, her black dress immaculate, her makeup perfect despite what should have been overwhelming grief. As the pastor's voice droned on about eternal peace, I felt her lean closer to my ear. "I want to see where you're going to live now that I've inherited the entire fortune," she whispered, her breath hot against my skin. The words hit me like ice water. I turned to look at her, searching for some sign that I'd misheard, that grief had somehow twisted her words into something cruel. But her dark eyes held nothing but cold satisfaction. She wasn't grieving. She was gloating. My hands trembled in my lap. 28 years of watching her slowly poison my relationship with William, and now this. Now she thought she'd won everything. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap that smug expression off her face. Instead, I turned back to face the casket, swallowing the bile that rose in my throat. What kind of woman whispers threats at her husband's funeral? The service ended in a blur. People shook my hand, hugged me, promised to call. Evelyn played the grieving widow perfectly, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief that never seemed to get wet. I watched her accept sympathy and condolences like she was collecting trophies. "Barbara will be fine," I heard her tell William's business partner, David. "She's stronger than she looks. Besides, William made sure I'd be taken care of. He was such a thoughtful husband." The way she emphasized, "I'd be taken care of," made my stomach turn. She wasn't even waiting until the body was in the ground before claiming her prize. The drive home was torture. Every street corner held a memory of William. The park where I taught him to ride a bike. The ice cream shop where we celebrated his graduation from college. The office building where he'd started his consulting business, the one that had made him wealthy enough to attract someone like Evelyn. My house felt enormous and empty when I finally walked through the front door. William's childhood photos lined the hallway, gap-toothed grins, little league uniforms, prom pictures. In every single one, he was smiling. When had that stopped? When had Evelyn stolen his joy so completely that he'd rather die than keep fighting? I dropped my purse by the door and kicked off my heels, my feet aching from standing for hours. The silence was deafening. No more phone calls asking about my day. No more surprise visits with takeout from my favorite Chinese restaurant. No more anything. I made it to the kitchen before the sobs finally came. Deep, wrenching cries that seemed to tear something loose inside my chest. I gripped the counter, my knees threatening to buckle under the weight of my grief. That's when I heard it. A soft thud from upstairs. I froze, my tears stopping midstream. The house was old, it made noises. But this wasn't the usual settling of wooden beams. This was something else, another sound. Footsteps. Fear crept up my spine. Had someone broken in? Did they know I'd been at the funeral, that the house was empty? I grabbed the cordless phone, my fingers shaking as I started to dial 911. "Mom?" The voice came from the top of the stairs, weak and raspy, but unmistakable. The phone slipped from my hands, clattering to the kitchen floor. "Mom, don't call anyone. Please." I looked up, and there he was. William. My son. Alive. His face was gaunt. His hair disheveled, and he was wearing clothes I'd never seen before, a gray sweatshirt and jeans that hung loose on his frame. But it was him. It was really him. "William?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. He descended the stairs slowly, favoring his left leg, and I noticed the way he gripped the banister like he needed the support. "I know this is a shock," he said, his voice hoarse. "But I need you to listen to me very carefully." I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. "You're dead. I just came from your funeral. There was a casket. Flowers. People crying. I know." He reached the bottom of the stairs and moved toward me carefully, like he was approaching a wild animal. "And that's exactly what Evelyn thinks too. That's what everyone thinks." "I don't understand." The words tumbled out of me. "What's happening? Why did you let me think you were dead? Do you have any idea what I've been through?" "Mom, please sit down." I didn't want to sit down. I wanted answers. but my legs were shaking so badly that I had no choice. I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, staring at my son like he was a ghost. Evelyn was trying to kill me. The words hung in the air between us, stark and impossible. What did you say? William pulled out the chair across from me, wincing as he sat down. She's been poisoning me, Mom. Slowly. For months. I felt the world tilt sideways. That's impossible. Evelyn loves you. You've been married for 6 years. No, she loves my money. She loves the life I could give her. But she never loved me. His eyes, the same green as mine, held a pain I'd never seen before. And when she realized I was starting to figure out what she was doing, she got desperate. My mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. William, you're not making sense. You had a heart attack. Dr. Martinez said your heart just gave out. You were only 32, but these things happen. My heart gave out because she was putting Digitalis in my coffee every morning. The room went silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Digitalis. I knew that word. It was a heart medication, but in large doses. She wanted me dead, Mom. And she wanted you to think it was natural causes so there wouldn't be any investigation. I stared at my son, this man I'd raised from a baby, and saw the truth in his eyes. The same truth I'd been refusing to see for months as he grew thinner, more tired, more distant. How did you? I couldn't finish the question. I found the bottle. Hidden in her jewelry box 3 days ago. I confronted her, and she broke down and admitted everything. Said she was tired of pretending to love me, tired of waiting for me to die naturally so she could inherit everything. The kitchen felt like it was spinning. But the funeral. The body. Dr. Martinez has been helping me. He's the one who declared me dead. We've been planning this for 2 days. William reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But it was the only way. The only way for what? His grip tightened on my fingers. To make her think she'd won. So we can prove what she did and make sure she never hurts anyone else. I looked into my son's face, seeing the boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, and I knew that everything I thought I understood about my life had just changed forever. Don't tell her I'm alive, he whispered. Not yet. I spent the entire night staring at William's face, afraid that if I looked away, he might disappear again. We sat in my living room with the curtains drawn, 2 cups of tea growing cold on the coffee table between us. Every few minutes, I had to resist the urge to reach out and touch him, just to make sure he was real. Tell me everything, I said finally, my voice still hoarse from crying. From the beginning. William shifted on the couch, pulling a blanket around his shoulders. He looked so much thinner than he had just a few months ago. How had I not noticed? How had I let Evelyn convince me that his weight loss was just stress from work? It started about 8 months ago, he began, his voice quiet. I began having these episodes. Chest pains, irregular heartbeat, dizziness. Evelyn was so concerned, always insisting I see doctors, making sure I took my medication. She seemed like such a caring wife, I murmured, remembering how Evelyn would update me on William's health, always with just the right amount of worry in her voice. That's what I thought too. William's laugh was bitter. She'd bring me my coffee every morning, along with my heart medication. She'd count out my pills, make sure I took them with food. I thought I was lucky to have someone who cared so much about my health. The pieces were starting to form a horrifying picture in my mind. The medication wasn't medication at all. Well, not the right kind. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small plastic bottle. This is what she was giving me. Digitalis. In therapeutic doses, it helps regulate heart rhythm. But Evelyn was giving me nearly 3 times the safe amount. I took the bottle with trembling hands, reading the label. It was prescribed to Eleanor Hartwell, an elderly woman I didn't recognize. Where did she get this? Eleanor was her previous employer. Evelyn worked as a home health aide before we met. Eleanor died of a heart attack 2 years ago. William's voice was flat, emotionless. I think I know why now. The teacup slipped from my hands, shattering on the hardwood floor. You think she killed her too? I think Evelyn has been perfecting her method for a long time. I stared at my son, this man who had always been so trusting, so willing to see the best in people. How did you figure it out? William was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Do you remember last month when I had that bad episode? The one where Evelyn called the ambulance? I nodded. I'd met them at the hospital, watching my son hooked up to machines while Evelyn held his hand and whispered reassurances. She'd looked so frightened, so devoted. That night, after they released me, I woke up around 3 in the morning. Evelyn was in the bathroom, and I could hear her on the phone with someone. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. She was laughing, Mom. Talking about how close it had been, how she'd almost given me too much. The room felt cold suddenly, despite the heater running. What did you do? I pretended to be asleep when she came back to bed. But I started paying attention after that. Really paying attention. William stood up and began pacing, his movements still careful and deliberate. I noticed that my episodes always happened within an hour of drinking the coffee she made me. I started dumping it out when she wasn't looking, telling her I'd finished it. And you felt better? Immediately. The chest pain stopped, my energy came back. That's when I knew for sure. He stopped pacing and looked at me directly. So I set a trap. What kind of trap? I told her I'd been thinking about updating my will. Said I wanted to make sure she'd be taken care of if something happened to me, but that I was also concerned about providing for you in your old age. The words hit me like a physical blow. William had been worried about me, even while his own wife was trying to kill him. How did she react? She got angry. Really angry. Started talking about how you'd never supported our marriage, how you'd always tried to turn me against her. William's eyes darkened with remembered pain. She said you didn't deserve anything, that you'd had your chance to be a good mother and you'd blown it. I felt tears stinging my eyes again. Evelyn had been so clever, so patient in her manipulation. She'd spent years planting seeds of doubt about me in William's mind, creating distance between us so that when the time came, he'd have no one to turn to but her. That's when she escalated, William continued. The next morning, the dose in my coffee was much stronger. I knew because I didn't dump it out, I took it to Dr. Martinez instead. Dr. Martinez knew what was happening. Not at first. I told him I wanted the coffee tested, that I thought something might be wrong with our coffee maker. William managed a weak smile. He thought I was being paranoid. Until the test results came back. What did they show? Enough digitalis to stop my heart within hours. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I tried to imagine what would have happened if William had drunk that coffee, if he hadn't been suspicious enough to test it. I would have lost him forever, and Evelyn would have inherited everything while playing the grieving widow. Dr. Martinez wanted to call the police immediately, William said. But I convinced him to help me fake my death instead. Why? Why not? Just have her arrested? William sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. Because I needed proof that she did it intentionally. The digitalis could have been explained away, maybe I'd accidentally taken someone else's medication, maybe there was a pharmacy error. But if she thought I was dead and I could observe her behavior afterward, you'd have evidence of her true nature. Exactly. And it worked, didn't it? What she said to you at the funeral, that wasn't grief talking. That was someone who'd gotten exactly what she wanted. I remembered Evelyn's cold eyes, her satisfied smirk, the way she'd whispered about the inheritance like she was sharing a delicious secret. There had been no love in her voice, no sorrow. Just triumph. She's already been to the lawyer, William said quietly. Dr. Martinez has been keeping an eye on her for me. She met with Harold Brennan yesterday afternoon to discuss probate. Harold Brennan was William's lawyer, the man who'd handled his business contracts and personal affairs for years. I'd met him several times at company parties, a decent man who'd always spoken highly of William's integrity. What did she tell him? That she wanted to expedite the process. Said she was worried about you trying to contest the will, that you might cause problems. William's voice hardened. She also asked about having you declared mentally incompetent. The words hit me like a slap. What? She told Harold that you'd been acting strangely since my death, that she was concerned about your ability to make rational decisions. She suggested that maybe someone should be appointed to handle your affairs. I felt sick. Even with William supposedly dead, Evelyn wasn't content to just take his money. She wanted to destroy me too, to make sure I couldn't interfere with her plans or pose any threat to her new life. She's not going to stop, is she? I asked. William shook his head. She can't afford to. You're the only person who might ask questions, who might remember things that don't add up. As long as you're around and mentally competent, you're a risk to her. The house creaked around us, settling into the night. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of traffic, the normal world continuing while mine had been turned completely upside down. So what do we do now? I asked. William looked at me with determination I hadn't seen in his eyes for months. Now, we let her think she's won. And we gather enough evidence to make sure she never hurts anyone else again. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small recording device. Starting with this conversation she had with Dr. Martinez this afternoon, thinking he was just another grieving friend offering condolences. My heart stopped as I recognized Evelyn's voice coming from the speaker, clear and unmistakable. I'm just so relieved that William is finally at peace. His heart was so weak, you know. I've been expecting this for months. The next morning, I had to pretend my son was still dead. I had to put on the black dress again, apply makeup to hide the exhaustion in my eyes, and answer the door when people came to offer their condolences. Each lie felt like swallowing glass. William had hidden himself in the attic before dawn, a space Evelyn had never bothered to explore during her visits to my house. We'd strung a baby monitor up there so he could hear what was happening downstairs. And I wore the other receiver clipped inside my sleeve like a secret lifeline. The first test came at 10 in the morning when Evelyn arrived with a casserole dish and a predatory smile. "Barbara, sweetie, how are you holding up?" She stepped into my foyer without waiting for an invitation, her heels clicking against the hardwood like a countdown timer. She was dressed impeccably as always, a navy blue suit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, her blonde hair styled in perfect waves. "I'm managing," I said, my voice deliberately shaky. It wasn't hard to sound broken. I was broken, just not in the way she thought. She set the casserole on my kitchen counter and turned to face me with practiced sympathy. "I brought you some of that chicken and rice dish you liked at the church potluck. You need to keep your strength up." The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who'd been systematically poisoning my son was now bringing me food, acting like she cared about my well-being. "That's very thoughtful," I managed, watching her. I scanned my kitchen like she was taking inventory. "I know this is difficult, but we need to talk about practical matters." Evelyn's voice took on a businesslike tone. "William's funeral expenses, for instance. I'll be handling all of that, of course, but there are some decisions about the service that need to be made." I nodded, playing the part of the grieving mother who was too overwhelmed to handle details. "Whatever you think is best." "Good." She opened her purse and pulled out a folder. "I've also been thinking about your situation here. This house is so big for just one person, and the maintenance costs must be enormous." My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. "What do you mean?" "Well, William always worried about you living here alone. He mentioned several times that he thought you might be happier in a nice retirement community, somewhere with people your own age and activities to keep you busy." The baby monitor crackled softly in my sleeve, and I heard the faint sound of movement from upstairs. William was listening to every word. "I haven't really thought about moving," I said carefully. Evelyn's smile sharpened. "Of course you haven't. You're in shock, you're grieving. That's exactly why you need someone to help you make these important decisions." She opened the folder and spread several brochures across my kitchen table. "I've taken the liberty of researching some excellent facilities. This one in particular has wonderful reviews." I looked down at the glossy pamphlet. "Sunset Manor Assisted Living." The building looked pleasant enough in the photographs, but the words, "Memory Care Unit," caught my eye. "Evelyn, I don't need assisted living. I'm only 56. Age is just a number, Barbara. It's about quality of life, about having support when you need it." Her tone was patronizing, like she was talking to a confused child. "And let's be honest, you haven't been yourself lately." Even William was concerned about some of the things you'd been saying. "What things?" The question came out sharper than I intended. "Oh, you know. The forgetfulness, the confusion about dates and appointments. Last month you called William 3 times in one day asking if he was coming to dinner, even though he'd already told you he couldn't make it. That was a lie. A complete, calculated lie. I'd called William once that day to invite him to dinner, and he'd said yes. Evelyn had called an hour later to cancel, saying he wasn't feeling well." "I don't remember that," I said, which was the truth. "See? That's exactly what I mean." Evelyn leaned forward, her voice full of fake concern. "Memory issues can be scary, but there's no shame in getting help. These facilities have wonderful staff who specialize in helping people maintain their independence as long as possible." The baby monitor crackled again, and this time I was sure I heard William curse under his breath. "I think I should talk to my own doctor before making any major decisions," I said. Evelyn's smile faltered for just a moment. "Of course. But Dr. Patterson is getting ready to retire, isn't he? I could recommend someone younger, someone who specializes in geriatric care." The web she was weaving was becoming clearer by the minute. "Replace my doctor with someone she could influence. Move me into a facility where my mental competency could be questioned. Isolate me from anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions about William's death." "That's very thoughtful of you," I said, "but I think I'll stick with Dr. Patterson for now." "Well, just think about it." Evelyn gathered up the brochures but left one behind, the one for Sunset Manor. "In the meantime, I should probably help you with some of the immediate practical concerns. Paying bills, organizing paperwork, that sort of thing. I know William always handled your finances." Another lie. I'd been managing my own finances since my divorce 30 years ago. William had occasionally helped with investment advice, but I'd never needed anyone to pay my bills. "I can manage," I said. I'm sure you think you can, but grief affects people in strange ways. It would make me feel so much better if I could just take a look at your accounts, make sure everything is in order. The baby monitor went silent, but I could feel the tension radiating through the house. William was probably struggling not to burst downstairs and confront her right then and there. Maybe later, I said. When I'm feeling more myself. Evelyn's eyes hardened, but her voice remained sweet. Of course. There's no rush. She stood up and smoothed her skirt. I should let you rest. But Barbara, I want you to know that you're not alone in this. William would want me to take care of you. The words made my stomach turn. She was using my dead son, the son she'd murdered, to manipulate me into giving up my independence and my assets. After she left, I waited a full 10 minutes before calling up to the attic. She's gone. William climbed down through the access panel in my bedroom closet, his face dark with rage. Did you hear all of that? Every word. He held up his own baby monitor. She's moving fast. Faster than we expected. What do you think she's planning? Total control. William began pacing my bedroom, his hands clenched into fists. She wants you declared incompetent so she can be appointed as your guardian. Then, she'll have access to your accounts, your property, everything. But why? She's already getting your inheritance. Because you know me better than anyone else. You might remember things that don't fit her story. You might ask questions about my medical care, about how quickly my condition deteriorated. He stopped pacing and looked at me directly. And because she enjoys it. She likes having power over people. I sank onto my bed, the weight of the situation settling over me like a lead blanket. So what do? We let her think she's winning, but we document everything. Every lie, every manipulation. Every attempt to isolate you or control your decisions. William pulled out his phone. I've been in touch with a private investigator. Someone Dr. Martinez recommended. She's been looking into Evelyn's background. What has she found? Eleanor Hartwell wasn't the first. William's voice was grim. Before she worked for Eleanor, Evelyn was employed by a man named Robert Chen. 73 years old, wealthy widower, no close family. He died of a heart attack 6 months after hiring her as a companion. The room felt like it was spinning. How many people has she killed? We don't know yet. But there's a pattern. She targets people who are isolated, who have money but no strong family connections to ask questions. William sat down beside me on the bed. The investigator is also looking into her financial records. Evelyn has been living well beyond what her salary as a home health aide should have allowed. The investigator can access her bank records. Let's just say that Dr. Martinez has connections we didn't know about. Apparently, his brother works in financial crimes. I felt a spark of hope for the first time since this nightmare began. So we have help. We have help. But Mom, you have to be convincing. Evelyn is smart, and she's suspicious. If she figures out that I'm alive before we have enough evidence to prove what she's done, she'll run. Or she'll try to finish what she started with me, and maybe hurt you in the process. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. I had to play the part of a grieving, confused widow while helping to build a case against the woman who'd murdered my son. One mistake, one moment of letting my guard down, and Evelyn might escape justice entirely. What's our next move? I asked. William smiled for the first time since he'd revealed himself to me. Tomorrow, you're going to call Evelyn and tell her. You've been thinking about what she said. You're going to ask her to help you look at your finances. I'm going to invite the wolf into the henhouse. Exactly. And while she's focused on your bank accounts, we'll be recording every word she says. I looked at my son, this man who should have been dead, who was risking everything to make sure his killer faced justice. What if something goes wrong? Then at least we'll go down fighting. The phone call to Evelyn was harder than I expected. My hands shook as I dialed her number, knowing that William was listening from the attic, recording every word through the baby monitor system we'd set up. Barbara? Is everything all right? Evelyn's voice was immediately alert, suspicious. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, I began, forcing my voice to sound tired and uncertain. About my finances, about getting help with things. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. The relief in her voice was palpable. I know it's hard to admit when we need help, but you're making the right decision. Could you come over this afternoon? Maybe look at my bank statements with me? I tried to balance my checkbook this morning and nothing seemed to add up right. Another lie, but one that would give Evelyn exactly what she wanted, access to my financial information and further evidence of my supposed mental decline. Of course. I'll be there in an hour. She arrived in 45 minutes, carrying a briefcase. And wearing an expression of barely contained excitement. She dressed down for the occasion, jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer outfits, probably trying to look more approachable, more trustworthy. Now, don't you worry about a thing, she said, settling herself at my kitchen table like she owned the place. We'll get this all sorted out. I brought her my bank statements, credit card bills, and investment account summaries, everything William and I had carefully prepared the night before. Hidden among the legitimate documents were several we'd altered slightly, creating the appearance of confusion and poor decision-making. Evelyn spread the papers across the table, her eyes scanning the numbers with practiced efficiency. "Oh my," she murmured after a few minutes. "Barbara, some of these payments don't make sense." She pointed to a credit card statement where we'd highlighted a payment to a charity I'd never heard of. In reality, it was a legitimate donation to the local animal shelter, but we'd changed the name to something vague and suspicious sounding. "I don't remember making that donation," I said, which was technically true since we'd invented the organization name. "And this check to First National Trust, that's a very large amount. Do you remember what that was for?" "I thought it was for my property taxes, but now I'm not sure." Evelyn's smile was predatory. "Honey, your property taxes aren't due until December. This payment was made in July." She made a note on a legal pad she'd brought with her. "Have you been having trouble sleeping? Sometimes when people are overtired, they make financial decisions they don't remember later." The way she said it, with such practiced concern, made my skin crawl. She was building a case for my incompetency right in front of me, documenting every mistake for future use. "I have been tired lately," I admitted. "Everything feels so overwhelming since William." "Of course it does." Evelyn reached across the table and patted my hand. "That's why you need someone to help you. Someone you can trust." She spent the next hour going through my accounts, asking leading questions designed to make me seem confused or forgetful. When did I last speak to my investment advisor? Did I remember authorizing certain transactions? Had I been keeping track of my monthly expenses? With each question, I played my part, appearing more and more overwhelmed. But I was also watching her, noting how her eyes lit up when she saw the balance in my retirement account, how she lingered over the documents related to my house's current market value. "Barbara, I hate to say this, but I think some of these financial decisions show signs of cognitive decline," she said finally, her voice heavy with fake sympathy. "The good news is that we caught it early. With the right help, we can make sure you don't make any more costly mistakes." "What kind of help?" "Well, for starters, I think we should set up automatic bill pay for all your recurring expenses. That way you won't have to worry about remembering due dates." She pulled a set of forms from her briefcase. "I took the liberty of getting the paperwork from your bank. All you need to do is sign here, and I can be added as an authorized user on your accounts." The baby monitor in my sleeve crackled almost inaudibly. William was hearing all of this, recording Evelyn's attempt to gain control of my finances under the guise of helping me. "I don't know," I said hesitantly. "Maybe I should talk to my financial advisor first." Evelyn's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw a flash of irritation in her eyes. "Barbara, Mr. Henderson is 78 years old. He's probably dealing with his own cognitive issues. Wouldn't you feel more comfortable working with someone younger, someone who specializes in helping people in your situation?" "My situation?" "People who are grieving, who might be experiencing some memory problems." Her voice took on a patronizing tone. "There's no shame in it, Barbara. It happens to lots of people your age." I was 56 years old, hardly decrepit, but Evelyn was painting me as a confused elderly woman who couldn't be trusted to manage her own affairs. "I suppose you're right," I said softly. "I know I am." She pushed the forms closer to me. "Just sign here, and I can start helping you right away." I picked up the pen, then hesitated. "What exactly would you be able to do with these accounts?" "Oh, just basic things. Pay your bills, make sure your investments are properly managed, help you avoid any more unfortunate financial decisions." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Think of me as your financial guardian angel. More like a financial vulture," I thought. But I signed the papers, knowing that William was documenting every moment of this manipulation. "There," Evelyn said, gathering up the signed forms with obvious satisfaction. "Don't you feel better already?" "I suppose so. Now, about your living situation." She pulled out the brochure for Sunset Manor that she'd left the day before. "I've been doing some research, and I really think you should consider this place. They have a wonderful program for people who are experiencing memory issues." "I haven't been having memory issues," I protested, forgetting for a moment that I was supposed to be playing confused. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. "Barbara, we just spent an hour going over financial transactions you couldn't remember making. That's a classic sign of early-stage dementia." The word hung in the air like a poison cloud. Dementia. She was actually trying to convince me that I had dementia. "But those were just mistakes," I said. Sweetheart, that's what everyone says at first. Denial is a natural part of the process. Evelyn's voice was gentle, but her eyes were calculating. The important thing is to get you the help you need before things get worse. She opened the brochure and pointed to a section about their memory care unit. Look at this. They have activities designed specifically for people with cognitive impairment. Art therapy, music therapy, supervised social activities. You'd be so much happier there than rattling around in this big house all by yourself. But this is my home. I know, and it's been a wonderful home. But it's also a lot of responsibility. Maintenance, property taxes, insurance. Wouldn't it be nice to let someone else worry about all of that? She was describing my life like it was a burden, like independence was something I should be grateful to give up. And all the while, she was positioning herself as my savior, the caring daughter-in-law, who was looking out for my best interests. I think I need time to think about it, I said. Of course. But Barbara, I have to ask, have you been taking care of yourself? Eating regular meals, taking your medications? What medications? I don't take any medications. Evelyn frowned. Are you sure? William mentioned that Dr. Patterson had prescribed something for your blood pressure. Another lie. My blood pressure was fine, and William had never said any such thing. But I could see where this was heading. If she could establish that I was forgetting to take prescribed medications, it would be another mark against my mental competency. I don't think so, I said uncertainly. Well, that's something else we'll need to look into. Memory problems, financial confusion, and now medication compliance issues. Evelyn shook her head sadly. I hate to say it, but I think we need to consider having you evaluated by a specialist. What kind of specialist? A geriatric psychiatrist. Someone who can assess your cognitive function and make recommendations for your care. She pulled yet another business card from her briefcase. Dr. Morrison comes highly recommended. He specializes in helping families navigate these difficult decisions. I took the card, noting that Dr. Morrison's practice was located in the same building as several assisted living facilities. How convenient. I really think you should call him tomorrow, Evelyn continued. The sooner we get a professional assessment, the sooner we can make sure you're getting the care you need. The way she kept saying "we" made my stomach turn. There was no we in this situation. There was only Evelyn, systematically dismantling my independence and positioning herself as my caretaker and decision-maker. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long, Evelyn replied, and for just a moment, her mask slipped completely. These things tend to progress quickly, and we don't want you to hurt yourself or make any more serious mistakes. The threat was barely veiled. Get evaluated, get declared incompetent, and move into supervised care, or face the consequences of my supposed mental decline. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by the evidence of her manipulation. The altered bank statements, the forms giving her access to my accounts, the brochures for assisted living facilities. It was a masterful performance, and if I hadn't known what she really was, I might have been convinced that she genuinely cared about my well-being. William climbed down from the attic, his face dark with fury. She's not just trying to steal your money, he said, holding up the recording device. She's trying to erase you completely. What do you mean? Think about it. If she can get you declared mentally incompetent and moved into a care facility, you become invisible. No one listens to confused old ladies in nursing homes. You could tell them that your son was murdered, and they'd just adjust your medication and pat you on the head. The full scope of Evelyn's plan was becoming clear. It wasn't enough for her to inherit William's money. She needed to make sure that the one person who might question his death was silenced permanently. She's done this before, I said, the realization hitting me like a cold wave. I think you're right. And tomorrow, we're going to start proving it. The private investigator's name was Sarah Chen, no relation to Robert Chen, the man Evelyn had allegedly killed before Eleanor Hartwell. Sarah was a small, sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen everything humanity had to offer and wasn't impressed by any of it. She arrived at my house at 7 in the morning, 3 days after Evelyn's financial manipulation session. William had spent those days hidden in my attic, emerging only after dark to stretch his legs and plan our next moves. The strain was showing on both of us, the constant vigilance, the need to maintain our deception, the weight of what we were trying to prove. I've been busy, Sarah said without preamble, setting a thick folder on my kitchen table. Your daughter-in-law has quite a history. William climbed down from the attic to join us, moving carefully. The prolonged confinement was taking a toll on his still recovering body, but his eyes were alert and focused as Sarah opened her files. Let's start with Eleanor Hartwell, Sarah began, pulling out a death certificate. 78 years old, died of cardiac arrest 8 months after hiring Evelyn as a live-in companion. Natural causes, according to the coroner. But, William prompted. But Eleanor's nephew in Seattle found it strange that his aunt, who'd been healthy enough to live independently until she hired Evelyn, would suddenly develop severe heart problems. He requested copies of her medical records. Sarah spread out several pages of medical documentation. Eleanor's doctor noted a rapid decline in her condition over the final 3 months of her life. Irregular heartbeat, episodes of chest pain, extreme fatigue. Sound familiar? My stomach clenched. It was exactly what William had described experiencing before he figured out what Evelyn was doing to him. The nephew also found it interesting that Eleanor had changed her will 2 weeks before she died, leaving everything to Evelyn instead of her family. How much? I asked. $600,000, plus a house in Portland worth another $400,000. Sarah pulled out bank records. Evelyn sold the house immediately after probate closed and moved to Sacramento, where she got a job as a home health aide through an agency. That's where she met Robert Chen, William said. Exactly. Robert was a retired engineer, widowed, no children. Very lonely, according to his neighbors. He hired Evelyn as a companion after a minor stroke left him feeling vulnerable about living alone. Sarah placed Robert's death certificate next to Eleanor's. He died 6 months later. Heart attack. But here's what's interesting, his neighbors told me that Robert had been complaining about feeling dizzy and having chest pains for weeks before he died. Said his new companion was always fussing over his medications, making sure he took everything exactly on schedule. The pattern was becoming sickeningly clear. Evelyn found isolated, wealthy people, gained their trust, slowly poisoned them while playing the devoted caregiver, and inherited their money when they died. How much did she get from Robert? William asked. $300,000 in life insurance, plus another $200,000 from his investment accounts. He'd made her the beneficiary just 3 months before he died. And before Robert? Sarah smiled grimly. That's where it gets really interesting. Before she came to California, Evelyn lived in Phoenix under the name Evelyn Marsh. She worked for a home care agency there and was assigned to care for a man named Donald Whitmore. She pulled out another death certificate, another set of medical records showing the same pattern of sudden cardiac decline. Let me guess, I said. Donald left her everything. Not quite everything, but enough. $150,000 and a car. But here's the thing, Donald's daughter in Denver got suspicious. She hired a lawyer to investigate, claimed that her father had been coerced into changing his will. William leaned forward. What happened? The investigation was just getting started when Evelyn disappeared. Left Phoenix in the middle of the night, didn't give the agency any forwarding address. The daughter's lawyer tried to track her down, but Evelyn Marsh seemed to have vanished into thin air. Until she resurfaced. In Portland as Evelyn Hartwell, I said, understanding. Exactly. She'd changed her last name, probably a fake marriage certificate or just started using a different identity. It's not as hard as people think, especially if you're patient and smart about it. Sarah pulled out a photograph, a driver's license. Photo from Arizona. It was definitely Evelyn, but younger, with darker hair and different makeup. She looked almost innocent. How many others do you think there were? William asked. I'm still investigating, but I found at least 2 more suspicious deaths in Arizona that fit the pattern. Elderly people who hired home care workers, developed sudden heart problems, and died after changing their wills. Sarah's expression was grim. If I had to guess, I'd say Evelyn has been doing this for at least 10 years. Maybe longer. The scope of it was staggering. Evelyn wasn't just a woman who'd killed my son for his money. She was a serial killer who'd been perfecting her method for years, leaving a trail of bodies across multiple states. This is enough to go to the police, isn't it? I asked. Sarah and William exchanged a look. It's circumstantial, Sarah said carefully. Suspicious, absolutely. But we don't have direct evidence that Evelyn poisoned any of these people. We have a pattern of behavior that suggests she might have, but pattern isn't proof. What about the digitalis? William asked. The bottle I found in her jewelry box. She could claim she found it among your belongings, that she was keeping it safe. Or that she was planning to return it to the pharmacy. Sarah shook her head. A good lawyer could come up with a dozen explanations. So what do we need? We need her to confess, or we need to catch her in the act. Sarah looked directly at me. Which brings us to the dangerous part of this plan. My blood went cold. What do you mean? William reached across the table and took my hand. Mom, we think Evelyn is going to try to kill you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I'd known she was dangerous, known she was manipulative and greedy, but somehow I hadn't fully processed that I might be her next victim. She's already laying the groundwork, Sarah said. The financial manipulation, the claims about your mental state, the push to get you evaluated by a psychiatrist who works with nursing homes. She's following the same pattern she used with the others. But I'm not wealthy like they were, I protested. You own your house free and clear, worth about $200,000. You have retirement savings, social security, investments. To someone like Evelyn, you're worth enough to kill. William squeezed my hand. Plus, you're a liability. You know me better than anyone. If she can't discredit you by having you declared incompetent, she needs to eliminate you entirely. The room felt like it was spinning. So what are you suggesting? We let her try, Sarah said simply. We set up surveillance, we document everything she does, and we catch her in the act of attempting murder. You want to use me as bait? It's the only way to get the evidence we need, William said. And I'll be there the whole time. We won't let anything happen to you. I looked at my son, this man who'd already faked his own death to escape his killer wife, and I saw the determination in his eyes. He'd been through hell, but he was willing to risk everything to make sure Evelyn faced justice. What would I have to do? Sarah pulled out a small device that looked like a hearing aid. Wear this. It's a transmitter that will broadcast everything. That happens directly to a recording device we'll have set up nearby. We'll also have cameras hidden throughout your house. And then what? Then we wait for Evelyn to make her move. Based on her pattern, she'll probably try to convince you to take medication for your supposed memory problems. Something that will cause a heart attack but look natural. The plan was terrifying, but I could see the logic in it. We needed proof of Evelyn's intentions, and the only way to get that proof was to give her the opportunity to reveal them. There's something else, Sarah said, pulling out another document. I've been in touch with the FBI. They have a task force that investigates serial killings of elderly people by caregivers. If we can prove that Evelyn is responsible for even one of these deaths, they'll take over the investigation. The FBI? I felt a spark of hope. They've been tracking similar cases across the country. People who prey on the elderly, gain their trust, and kill them for their money. It's more common than you might think, and it's hard to prosecute because the victims are often isolated and their deaths look natural. William leaned back in his chair, looking exhausted but determined. So we're not just trying to get justice for what she did to me. We're trying to stop her from killing anyone else. Exactly. Sarah began gathering up her files. But Barbara, I need you to understand the risks. If Evelyn suspects that we're onto her, if she figures out that William is alive, she could become desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. I thought about the woman who'd whispered threats in my ear at my son's funeral, who'd spent the last few days systematically trying to undermine my independence and credibility. She'd already shown me what she was capable of. When do we start? I asked. Sarah smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. We already have. I've been monitoring Evelyn's movements for the past 2 days. She's been researching medication interactions, visiting pharmacies in different parts of town, and she made an appointment with Dr. Morrison, the psychiatrist she recommended to you. She's moving fast. She's confident. She thinks you're just another confused old woman who won't be able to fight back. Sarah's expression hardened. She has no idea what she's up against. As Sarah packed up her files and prepared to leave, I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like we had a real plan, a real chance of stopping Evelyn before she could hurt anyone else. One more thing, Sarah said, pausing at the door. Dr. Martinez has agreed to help. If Evelyn tries to poison you, he'll be standing by to counteract whatever she gives you. After Sarah left, William and I sat in my kitchen, processing everything we'd learned. The magnitude of Evelyn's crimes was staggering, but so was the opportunity to stop her. Are you sure about this, Mom? William asked. We could just take what we have to the police, hope it's enough. I thought about Eleanor Hartwell, Robert Chen, Donald Whitmore, and all the other victims Sarah had mentioned. People who died alone, trusting the woman who was killing them. I'm sure, I said. But William, promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, you won't let her get away with this. He reached across the table and took both my hands in his. I promise, Mom. This ends now. The call came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after Sarah had outlined our plan. I was sitting in my kitchen, wearing the tiny transmitter that looked like a hearing aid, when Evelyn's voice came through my phone with practiced concern. Barbara, I have wonderful news. Dr. Morrison had a cancellation and he can see you this afternoon. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice steady. Today? I thought we were going to wait until next week. I know, but these appointments are so hard to get, and I really think we shouldn't delay. You've seemed more confused lately, and I'm worried about you living alone. More lies. I hadn't seemed confused because I wasn't confused. But Evelyn needed to establish urgency, needed to push me toward the psychiatric evaluation that would declare me incompetent. I suppose, I said, injecting uncertainty into my voice. But I'm not sure I'm ready. Sweetheart, that's exactly why we need to do this. People with memory problems often don't realize how bad things have gotten. Her voice was syrupy with fake compassion. I'll pick you up at 2 o'clock. And Barbara? I've been thinking about your health in general. Have you been taking any vitamins or supplements? The question seemed to come out of nowhere, but I knew it wasn't random. This was what Sarah had been waiting for, the moment when Evelyn would start introducing the idea of medication. Just a multivitamin, I said. That's good, but I think you might benefit from something more targeted. Memory support supplements, maybe something for heart health. I've been doing some research, and there are some wonderful natural remedies that could really help you. Natural remedies. My stomach turned. Digitalis came from the foxglove plant, technically natural, but deadly in the wrong doses. We can talk about it after your appointment with Dr. Morrison, Evelyn continued. I'll bring some information with me. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen for several minutes, processing what had just happened. The appointment with the psychiatrist. The sudden interest in my health supplements. Evelyn was accelerating her timeline, the transmitter in my ear crackled softly, and I heard William's voice from his hiding place in the attic. Did you get all that? Every word, came Sarah's response. She was parked in a van down the street, monitoring all our communications. She's making her move. I climbed upstairs and spoke quietly toward the ceiling. Are you sure about this? As sure as I can be, William replied. Dr. Martinez is standing by. Sarah has FBI agents positioned around the house, and we have enough recording equipment to document everything she does. You're as safe as we can make you. But I didn't feel safe. I felt like a mouse agreeing to let a cat play with it, hoping the mousetrap would spring at exactly the right moment. At exactly 2 o'clock, Evelyn's silver BMW pulled into my driveway. She was dressed professionally, a navy suit and pearls. Playing the role of the concerned daughter-in-law taking care of her confused mother-in-law. Ready? She asked as I got into the passenger seat. As ready as I can be. The drive to Dr. Morrison's office took 20 minutes, and Evelyn spent the entire time priming me for the evaluation. She reminded me of all the symptoms I'd been showing: the financial confusion, the memory lapses, the inability to manage my daily responsibilities. By the time we arrived, anyone listening would have thought I was barely functional. Dr. Morrison's office was in a medical building that also housed 2 assisted living facilities and a memory care unit. The connection wasn't subtle. His waiting room was filled with elderly patients, most of them accompanied by younger family members who spoke about them in the third person, as if they weren't capable of understanding the conversation. Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Morrison called my name after a short wait. He was a thin man in his 60s with pale eyes that seemed to look through me rather than at me. Please, come in. Evelyn started to follow us into the office. I'm sorry, but I need to speak with Mrs. Harrison privately first, Dr. Morrison said. Standard procedure. For just a moment, I saw irritation flash across Evelyn's face. She'd wanted to be in the room, probably to guide the conversation and make sure I said all the right things to support her narrative. Of course, she said smoothly. I'll be right here when you're finished. Dr. Morrison's office was sterile and impersonal, filled with diplomas and certificates that were supposed to establish his credibility. He gestured for me to sit in a chair across from his desk while he reviewed a file. I understand you've been having some cognitive difficulties, he said without looking up. I don't think so. My daughter-in-law is concerned, but I feel fine. He made a note. Tell me about your daily routine. Do you have any trouble managing your finances, remembering appointments, that sort of thing? For the next 30 minutes, he asked me questions clearly designed to reveal signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. Most of them I answered correctly, but I could see him noting the few times I hesitated or asked for clarification. Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to be direct with you, he said finally. Your daughter-in-law is right to be concerned. While you're not showing severe impairment, there are signs of early-stage cognitive decline that could progress rapidly without proper intervention. The diagnosis was exactly what Evelyn had been hoping for, not severe enough to require immediate institutionalization, but problematic enough to justify increased supervision and support. What kind of intervention? Medication, for starters. There are drugs that can slow the progression of memory loss if we catch it early enough. He pulled out a prescription pad. I'm going to start you on something that should help with the confusion and memory issues. He wrote out a prescription and handed it to me. The medication name was long and unfamiliar, but I memorized it so I could report back to William and Sarah. I'm also going to recommend that you consider supervised living arrangements. Not a nursing home, but perhaps an assisted living facility, where you can maintain your independence while having access to support when you need it. I don't want to move. I understand, but Mrs. Harrison, living alone with progressing cognitive issues can be dangerous. What if you forgot to turn off the stove? What if you got confused and wandered away from home? His voice was patient but patronizing. Your daughter-in-law loves you and wants to make sure you're safe. When we returned to the waiting room, Evelyn's face lit up with anticipation. How did it go? She asked Dr. Morrison. I've explained to Mrs. Harrison that we caught the cognitive decline early, which is good news. With medication and proper support, we can help maintain her quality of life. He handed her a business card. I've given her some recommendations about living arrangements that you might want to discuss. In the car on the way home, Evelyn was practically vibrating with excitement. I'm so proud of you for going through with that, she said. I know it was scary, but now we can get you the help you need. The medication he prescribed, is it safe? Oh, absolutely. Dr. Morrison is one of the best geriatric psychiatrists in the state. But you know what? I've been doing some research on natural alternatives that might work even better. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small bottle. This is a memory support supplement. All natural ingredients, no side effects. She handed me the bottle, and I read the label carefully. The ingredients list was long and mostly unfamiliar, but I didn't see digitalis mentioned. That didn't mean it wasn't there, though. Evelyn was too smart to put poison on an ingredient label. When should I start taking it? Tonight would be good. Take 2 capsules before bed, they'll help you sleep better too, which is important. For memory consolidation. She smiled, and for just a moment, I saw genuine warmth in her expression. She was looking forward to this. And the prescription from Dr. Morrison? Oh, let's start with the natural approach first. If that doesn't help, we can always add the prescription later. We drove the rest of the way home in relative silence. Evelyn walked me to my door, fussing over me like I was a fragile elderly woman who might fall down at any moment. Now remember, take 2 capsules tonight. I'll call you in the morning to see how you're feeling. She hugged me, and I caught a whiff of her expensive perfume. Sweet dreams, Barbara. After she left, I sat in my kitchen staring at the bottle of supplements. They looked innocent enough, standard gel capsules in a professional-looking bottle with an FDA disclaimer at the bottom. But if Evelyn had given them to me, they were anything but innocent. I climbed upstairs and spoke quietly toward the attic. She gave me supplements. We saw, William replied. Sarah's already sent a sample to the lab for analysis. Dr. Martinez thinks we should have results by tomorrow morning. What do I do tonight? You take the pills. But don't worry, Dr. Martinez gave us something that will counteract whatever poison she's used. You'll be monitored all night. The idea of voluntarily swallowing poison made my hands shake, but I knew we needed proof of Evelyn's intentions. Taking the supplements and surviving would give us evidence of attempted murder. At 10 o'clock that night, I stood in my bathroom with 2 of Evelyn's capsules and a glass of water. The tiny transmitter in my ear carried the voices of the people trying to keep me alive, William in the attic, Sarah in her surveillance van, Dr. Martinez standing by with antidotes and emergency medical equipment. Are you ready, Mom? William's voice was tense. Ready, I said, and swallowed both pills. For the first hour, nothing happened. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting to feel the effects of whatever Evelyn had given me. Then, gradually, I began to notice changes. My heart rate was increasing, my breathing was becoming shallow, and I felt a strange tingling in my extremities. Something's happening, I whispered. We see it, Dr. Martinez's voice came through the transmitter. Your heart rate is elevated, but you're still in the safe range. How do you feel? Dizzy. My chest feels tight. That's the digitalis. She used a smaller dose than she gave William, probably because she wanted your death to look more natural, an elderly woman with early dementia having a heart attack in her sleep. The next few hours were the longest of my life. The symptoms got progressively worse: chest pain, irregular heartbeat, nausea, confusion. But Dr. Martinez had given me medication to counteract the poison, and gradually, I began to feel better. By morning, I was exhausted but alive. More importantly, we had proof that Evelyn had tried to kill me. The phone rang at 8 a.m. Barbara? How are you feeling this morning? Evelyn's voice was bright and cheerful. Tired, I said truthfully. And a little dizzy. Oh, that's probably just your body adjusting to the supplements. That should pass in a day or 2. There was satisfaction in her voice. She thought her plan was working. Should I take more tonight? Absolutely. In fact, I think you should increase the dose to 3 capsules. Your system might need a little more support. 3 capsules would probably be enough to kill me, even with Dr. Martinez's antidotes. Evelyn was accelerating her timeline, probably hoping to have me dead within the week. I'll try that, I said. Good. And Barbara? I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. I really think we should get you moved into Sunset Manor as soon as possible. Just temporarily, while we adjust your medication and make sure you're stable. Maybe you're right. I know I am. I'll call them today and see about getting you a room. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling a strange sense of calm. We had everything we needed, recordings of Evelyn pressuring me into taking dangerous supplements, evidence that she was trying to have me committed, and laboratory proof that she'd given me poison, but the best part was still to come. At noon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Evelyn standing on my porch with a suitcase in one hand and a bouquet of flowers in the other. I thought you might like some company today, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. You seemed so confused on the phone this morning. She was here to watch me die. To make sure the increased dose of poison did its job. And to be present when my heart gave out, so she could play the grieving daughter-in-law who'd done everything possible to care for her confused mother-in-law. That's very thoughtful, I said. She sat up in my kitchen like she planned to stay for a while, arranging the flowers in a vase and making tea. At dinner time, she insisted on cooking, preparing a meal that I was sure contained additional poison. You should take your supplements early tonight, she said as we finished eating. 3 capsules, remember? I want to make sure you get the full benefit. Of course. I went upstairs to get the bottle, knowing that William was listening to every word, that Sarah's cameras were recording everything, that FBI agents were positioned around my house. When I came back downstairs, Evelyn was sitting at my kitchen table with her phone out, probably texting someone about how her plan was proceeding. Here we go, I said, shaking 3 capsules into my palm. That's right. Take them all at once, they'll work better that way. I lifted the pills toward my mouth, then stopped. Evelyn, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Did you really think I was stupid enough to fall for this? The change in her expression was instantaneous. The fake concern disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. I don't know what you mean. I mean the poison you've been feeding me. The digitalis you used to kill William, and Eleanor Hartwell, and Robert Chen, and Donald Whitmore, and God knows how many other people. Evelyn's face went white, then red. Barbara, you're confused. The medication is affecting your thinking. Actually, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. That's when William walked down the stairs. Evelyn's mouth fell open, her eyes wide with shock and terror. She looked back and forth between us, trying to process what she was seeing. Hello, darling, William said, his voice ice cold. Did you miss me? Evelyn shot to her feet, knocking over her chair. This isn't possible. You're dead. I watched them bury you. You watched them bury an empty casket, William replied. Dr. Martinez is very creative when he needs to be. She turned toward the door, but Sarah Chen stepped inside, followed by 2 FBI agents. Evelyn Hartwell, you're under arrest for the attempted murder of Barbara Harrison and the suspected murder of William Harrison, Eleanor Hartwell, Robert Chen, Donald Whitmore, and others to be determined. As the agents handcuffed her, Evelyn looked back at me with pure hatred. You stupid old woman, she snarled. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done, I replied. I've stopped you from killing anyone else. The FBI agents led her away, but not before she screamed back at us, this isn't over. You can't prove anything. But we could prove everything. The poison in the supplements, the recordings of her pushing me toward assisted living, the pattern of suspicious deaths across multiple states. Most importantly, we had her reaction to seeing William alive. No innocent person responds to their spouse's resurrection with rage and threats. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom and watched Evelyn receive 5 consecutive life sentences for murder in the first degree. The FBI had eventually linked her to 7 deaths across 4 states, and they suspected there were more they hadn't found yet. William sat beside me, healthy and strong again, his color returned and his smile genuine for the first time in years. Dr. Martinez had testified about the digitalis poisoning. Sarah Chen had presented evidence of Evelyn's pattern of targeting wealthy, isolated victims. And I had told the court about her attempts to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized. The judge called her a predator who preyed on the trust and vulnerability of others, and recommended that she never be eligible for parole. As we left the courthouse that day, William took my arm. Are you okay, Mom? I thought about the question seriously. Was I okay? I'd been through hell, come close to death, and learned that evil could wear a beautiful face and speak in a caring voice. But I'd also discovered that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, that love could triumph over manipulation, and that sometimes the dead really do come back to protect the living. Yes, I said. I think I'm better than okay. We walked to his car together, mother and son, survivors of a nightmare that had tried to destroy us both. Behind us, the courthouse stood as a symbol of justice served and evil defeated. Evelyn had whispered threats in my ear at what she thought was my son's funeral, believing she'd won everything. But in the end, love had proven stronger than greed, truth more powerful than lies, and family bonds more enduring than poison. I was 56 years old, and for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to be free.